This conference will now be recorded. This conference will now be recorded.
Good day, this is Harold Watson, Chairman of the Planning, excuse me, Chairman of the Housatonic Greenway and Complete Streets Subcommittee of the Planning Board. Due to the coronavirus-19 pandemic, we are conducting this meeting on thegotomeeting.com on Wednesday, the 2nd, 2022 at 12 noon. The quorum for this meeting is 6, and I will now call the following elected members to speak up as present. Karen Burke.
Here.
Tom Dillon.
Here.
Ellen Frank. Christopher Green. Michael Masisko. Nels Pearson. George Perham.
Here.
Jennifer Sheldon.
Here.
James Simon.
Speaking. Here.
And myself, Harold Watson. We also have Joseph Garrix, who is sitting in as a voting member today. Karen Rodilla is not here, I believe. And Stacy Taveras is also not here. So we have a quorum. We can go ahead and proceed. Let me find my agenda for today. Oh, you know what? I don't have an agenda. I did not print out the agenda. So we're going to have to depend upon Susmitha to lead us through the agenda. The first thing we need to do, I believe, is to approve the minutes from our last meeting. Will someone make a motion to do that?
George Perham, so moved.
Someone second it?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Ayes have it. Now we can start our meeting today. I think we have our basic 4 agenda items are on it. I have just one other update that I need to give, but essentially I'm going to now ask, hopefully Susmitha can do this from her phone. I'm going to ask her to give updates on both the phase 1 and the phase 2 Complete Streets projects.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. The next item on the agenda is Greenway Phase 2 status. I just want to let you know that, I'm working with the Regional Council of Governments staff in putting it out for consultants, putting the proposal for Phase 2 out for the consultants. This was advertised about 2 weeks ago, and they have a pre-selected list of consultants that they have reached out to, and it will close on February 15th. Once we have interested consultants list and their proposals, we will set up interviews with them to select the best consultant to start our preliminary engineering designs for Greenway Phase 2. Did I say Greenway Phase 2? Complete Streets Phase 2. I'm so sorry. I'm getting confused. Mm-hmm. Sorry?
Could you identify phase 2? That's the location?
Yeah. I think I confused myself. The phase 2 that I'm talking about is a Complete Streets from Barnum Avenue to Paradise Green.
Okay.
So we are looking to hire consultants to review that leg of Complete Streets. Phase 1 is currently being reviewed by DOT, and we're almost at 99% design stage. Hopefully, sometime in the next few weeks, we will get a green signal to proceed to bid for contractors to implement Phase 1 in front of Town Hall. And when they do that, they will also simultaneously provide us a green signal to do Phase 2 of Greenway from Elm Street all the way to West Broad intersection, West Broad and Main.
Oh, okay. And then we will be able then to proceed on the Elm Street portion?
Yes, that will be put out for bid by John Casey because it's largely town roads. Only right. That intersection is a state road.
So that's my question. That's a separate bid because it's all town owned roads,
Yeah.
except for the intersection of Stratford Avenue and Elm, where I guess that is a DOT light, um, if that's still in the package.
What did you say?
That the intersection of Stratford Avenue and Elm Street, in the original project, we had just that intersection having new stoplight for bicycle.
Okay.
They were going to upgrade the intersection.
That probably, I don't know, if that's not a part of Greenway Phase 2, I think. This one runs right along Shakespeare property near in front of it, and it's on road for the most part. And then you take a turn to the left on Broad Street, and then you intersect with West Broad.
Yeah, but there is a light crossing at Elm and Stratford Avenue. But I think that originally there was going to be a push button, and I don't believe there is.
Okay.
Right now, I think that's just you go with the traffic flow on that light.
That was something that we had requested. It wasn't something that the state felt had to happen. So we're crossing where we are. We're crossing the way it is right now. So I proceed. Whatever will get us done and functioning quicker. So forget that I said anything about this. So Smith, is that the total of your report?
Yes, that's it.
Do you have any anticipated use of this committee in any of the selection process on the bids or anything else?
Yeah, once the consultants submit their RFPs, we will know the breadth of the consultants that firms that are interested. If it's the same one like BSC Group and not many people applying, then, it probably would be just sitting down with them and trying to figure out who the project manager would be and what their roles and responsibilities would be. But if there's more than one consulting firm that is interested, and we can definitely hold 2 to 3 interviews, and maybe Harold, I would invite you to be sitting on those interviews as a representative of the Greenway Committee. And I may also request a planning commission member to be part of that selection committee.
But not the whole committee.
I don't think, because there are also Metro Cork staff that will be part of the selection committee because they'll be managing the project. I will be sitting because I will be coordinating the project. John Casey will be there. So I think it'll be a lot of people. Probably we'll have 5.
May I request that we have one other Greenway Complete Streets member, in addition to me? I just don't want to be the only person holding the information.
Yeah, and that brings back to the Planning Commission's guidance on this, Mr. Watson. I know the Commission invited you for their meeting next month, but the Planning Commission, should they choose to add another member as a liaison between the existing Commission and the Greenway Committee, that member could also very well be on the Greenway Committee and be also part of the selection committee.
And that is exactly what I was going to suggest to them. Just if they have someone who wants to be on the committee, it would be a good it's what we did with myself and John Staley and Joseph. We were all planning members who were on the committee. I think if we can continue that, it actually creates better conversation. And they will be more aware of what we need and what we're looking to do and what we're doing. So that's one of the things that I was going to suggest to them.
Yep.
So Smith, are you there?
Yes, I'm still here. My report has ended, and if you want others to comment at this point.
Yes, I wanted to go over kind of a couple points with the committee at some point. I don't have to do it now. We can actually maybe hear from, well, let me just do this because it'll take me 5 minutes and then you might have something to contribute. I spoke with our grant writer in town um, about what we could do to start identifying grants that we could play a part in working on. The town has so many grants that they're writing that they're limited in their ability to follow every grant that's around. And they can only choose to write grants for large amounts of money. Whereas we could write a grant as a committee somewhere in the $10,000 range with our abilities. We have enough bright people on this committee that we could actually do the drafting work and then hand it over to the town grant writer. And maybe that might be a way that they would feel that they could fit it within their work schedule. So that's what I'm going to propose, that we essentially identify several smaller grants that we can do a draft of and then forward that information to Greg Riley to see if he would take the lead on it. Hopefully that will make him feel confident enough that it's not going to use up all of his time. But we do have projects that desperately need to be done. And I took a couple moments this morning to write down some things. Right now, we are starting the capital improvement update, or the capital improvement budget for the next year, which is when the town decides what capital improvement projects they're going to bid on. Now, currently, the only voice we have on that is Susmitha and John Casey, who's here somewhere. But I'm thinking that if we were to identify several projects that we can get a sign off on from both Susmitha and John Casey, we might be able to identify something that could actually go into our capital improvement funds. Capital improvement funds are funds that we could use for things that normally we could not get funding for outside of the town, like signage. Signage is a very hard thing to fund. That's a perfect thing that we could actually fund as part of the CIP. We could request funding for that. Whether we get it or not, who knows, because everybody wants that funding. But there is some COVID money around still that I don't know that if it's all been claimed, that we might actually be able to make a claim that someone in town might say, yeah, let's do this. So I'm looking for two major items that the committee could do, which is the beginning of a development of a logo for the Stratford Housatonic Greenway, SHG, which is what the state identifies our Greenway as. So that we could start putting up signs at some of these areas that we hope to see construction happening on, but even some of the places where there is no construction, we just need to start identifying them as existing bike routes. Even if there is no markings there, we could start doing that, including the East Coast Greenway that runs on Ferry Boulevard and Stratford Avenue. There are essentially two separate projects that are running in that area that, even if the whole thing is not, we could start to begin to let East Coast Greenway riders know that we do have a Greenway in Stratford. So that's something that I would like to see someone take a look at. I'm not saying who right now. Tom, Karen. I think that both of you would be good candidates to start looking into something like that. The other thing is, I wrote down projects that the Greenway needs to think about, which is the hows and the whys. We need to increase awareness of our current routes. Now, everybody that rides right now and walks is aware of some portion of a route. So essentially, we need to do an updated map. But we also need to do a general map to let people in Stratford know that we have plans for these greenways. We need to develop an identity that is a logo, that is a map of current and imminent and future greenways and on-road routes. We also need someone to take responsibility, and I'll tell you honestly, I used to do this. I did this for 2 years through the Stratford Parks and Recreation. I started a riding club that we had about 20 members in that we rode 3 times a week during the summer. And in the fall and the spring, we rode maybe once a week. But I need someone who really wants to get involved in rebuilding that and making that become a working thing. Because half the new people on this I met during one of these rides. So that too would do a great that would do a great service to our committee in terms of building awareness of people who actually use it. And the very notion of 10 or 12 bikes riding through town would be the best marketing that we could ever do. So what I would do is I would put up a map route, put a start time and end time, and I had a one-time sign up for a indemnity contract signing that said essentially, if you're riding with this group, you cannot sue the town. So that was part of Parks and Rec's demand. But I would happily go back to Parks and Recs and ask them to reestablish our riding. The other thing is that we need to work on the maps that distinguish what is a state route and what is a local route. Now, John, I know, could help us with this instantly, and that's what I do not know if that would qualify as a CIP, but that is part of what we are going to have to do for the POCD, which is update and come up with a realistic new map of where we have future routes planned, where we have existing routes, and where we have imminent routes planned, that makes it a little clearer for the general public, so that they're not just a planning document that gets stuck in a 100-page document, that actually could be printed and people could start using. Because that's the best way to get them built, is to have people use them. So I need someone who will take on that project, because honestly, they're in planning and zoning, they don't have the time to even think about this. And John has enough projects that I'm sure he would love to help us, would be the best advisor for us, but he doesn't have time to do this either. This is not a project, this is a project that we could find a college student who's working on planning, or a DOT intern to do this kind of work. But in any case, that needs to be one of our goals for this year. The other thing that no one is aware of really is that when we got the ordinance for complete streets in Stratford, it included a clause that said that there will be an annual report on complete streets that will be a combination of the committee and also the town engineer and also planning and zoning. Again, this is something that we should take the lead on to help planning and zoning and town engineering in terms of, so I'm looking for someone who's really good with text-based reports. It doesn't need to be 100 pages. It could be like 5 or 6 page long with even the current maps in it, with just textual annotations of where we are achieving our plan and where we know that that is not going to happen for another decade. So I'm looking for one of our members to step up and say that they would like to do this. So those
Mr.
are
Watson?
I'm going to let the Smitha respond to this now.
Yeah, I just wanted to add regarding your request for CIP and reaching out to grants manager Greg Riley on this. Just so we are all clear, there are some town established committees and there are some subcommittees that work as part of the town established committees. For example, if you look at the Shakespeare subcommittee, that has been working as a subcommittee to the redevelopment agency, which is a town established committee. So whenever they came up with any recommendation, they would go back to RDA, and RDA gives them direction on whether to proceed or not to proceed with that particular recommendation. In the absence of any umbrella body, and if you as a committee would want to become your own committee, then you have to lobby at the town council for that. But for
I
now,
think we're okay because anything that we're doing, my assumption is we would send this to planning as a,
yeah,
as,
and so they're the ones who should make the recommendation to the
oh,
CIP.
absolutely. No, I'm saying that, but planning doesn't have time to do this either. So my assumption is that if we took the lead, sent it to planning, then planning could send it on to town council or to the mayor, or to the grant writer.
I'm
But
sorry, Harold, what's CIP?
uh, uh,
Capital improvement program.
Capital,
Mhm.
that's our bonded funding for anything that we do to improve the town.
Okay, is capital what? I'm sorry.
Capital improvement projects
Thank you.
Program.
program. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
And that's bonded money that we bond through the state, I believe. And believe me, there are critical projects in there, like our sewer system that needs to be. I mean, so we would not be on the top of the list, but at least if we start getting things out there, then people start saying, hey, this is something that we need to at least think about. Right now, there is no one thinking about this. So Smitha is the sole person who's doing most of these projects in terms of moving them ahead. Am I correct, Susmitha?
No, actually, we have a team here. John Casey works on it. Kelly Kerrigan works on it. Jay Habansky works on it. So everybody is striving to implement the projects, and I don't want to take all the credit here. I'm just part of the team.
Don't listen to her. She really is the lead on this. That's my feeling. So she works well with all of our team members, and I don't mean to exclude anybody, but in terms of planning and in terms of us being a subcommittee, I look at Susmitha as the boss.
No, I mean, I think we're digressing from the topic here, but the main point is that whatever you're trying to recommend, I suggest put those forward as a recommendation letter to the Planning Commission, and then I will convey it to the Planning Commission. And I know that you're coming next month to the commission meeting anyway, so they would probably appoint a representative from the Planning Commission to the Greenway, so that person can report back to the commission on the activities that are happening at the Greenway Subcommittee. This way, I really want to ensure that we're all working parallelly and keeping everybody informed.
I agree, Smitha. There is no argument on my part. That's part of the reason I wanted to bring this up, because I just wanted to get a feel of the group, the committee, to see if what I'm saying here makes any sense. I will type this up as a letter as to send to planning as our working list of what projects that we are looking into as part of our priority for this year.
Mr. Chairman,
And I will include on that asking them to select a member to come and join our group.
Mr. Chairman, this is George. Can I ask a question?
I don't know who this is.
George.
Oh, George, yes.
And forgive me if I'm ignorant to a lot of this. Is there a master plan of like the entire town of Stratford on what the ultimate goal here is?
George,
like you talk about projects and stuff like that, but are we like, have north, south, east, west? Okay, this is what we want to do in the town of Stratford in totality, and
yes,
then it's broken
there
down.
is that. It's if you go to the Greenway, it's a document. I believe it's 2013. You correct me if I'm wrong, Smith. That actually has the Greenway in it, but the POCD has a copy of that in it, and it lists possible trails all throughout the town, because one of the things that it includes is connectivity between all of our schools. Some of it is unrealistic. Some of it is absolute conjecture. In the north end, we started laying out trails, but then suddenly we thought, well, maybe we could get part of the right of way where the electric utility poles go through, which would be a beautiful way of off-road, but none of that has been worked on. And like the Ferry Boulevard that Smith has discussed, that was a priority on our list, but the remediation cleanup has put a stopper on that. And the other thing that has changed what we had down as the plan is coastal resiliency, that some of the places where we talked about building paths are really in flood zones that are going to have to be eventually built on top of dikes. Now, there's no reason, that's going to be another 10 or 20 years before that happens. There's no reason we could not proceed with a gravel path or something of that sort. So the maps that are there represent Joe Vesey and a lot of the Linda Pepin and a lot of the original Greenway members' really hard work on their part over the year.
Harold, I'm sorry, what's POCD?
The Plan of Conservation and Development. That's essentially our town vision for all of the conservation and development that we want to do. And everything about the Greenway and Complete Streets is embedded in that, or an updated version of it needs to go into it for the new one that's beginning this year.
Okay, thank you.
Every 10 years it has to be updated. So our plans for the Greenway essentially do need to be updated for that POCD to reflect areas where we know we'll never get a right of way. It's either on the road or it's not at all. And that's one of the hard things for Stratford is we don't have a lot of wooded land that we can take an off-road trail in. We're stuck using our roadways for a lot of our greenways. We have to. There's no other available route that we could have, with few exceptions.
So then from that master plan, it sounds like there's been a prioritization, and then from there, you would take those priorities, and that's where you would try to write these grants that you're trying to achieve?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm just saying that we could go through, and there are routes that we know that eventually they're town roads, and we know eventually we want to have them marked, but it's still expensive to mark a road. It requires equipment, it requires upkeep, it requires a lot of work. Just prepping Elm Street for the on-road route that goes down Elm Street has been a lot of work. A lot of preparation has gone in. I believe it required some damaged tree removals. It required a couple fire hydrant replacements. So there is a lot of work, even on an on-road pathway, that the town has to plan and pony up with those. In my position on zoning now, we are talking about a new affordable housing or apartment housing zoning, that we are actually looking at what Complete Streets, the ordinance says, is that we should move as much of the expense onto the developers if they are developing on an area that has a planned complete street or greenway on it. That we shouldn't say, you don't have to do this. We should say, even if it doesn't connect, you need to contribute to your portion. So that's only going to happen if we begin to stand up for where we have planned these greenways. And what's really critical is that we keep working for an all-town network, because if we are only in the Todd, then we are not reaching all of the population in this town. And that's what we need for a greenway, a network, is connectivity between different districts.
Is there something written, is there an ordinance written or something in planning and zoning that dictates?
If you go under Complete Streets, there is an ordinance, the Complete Streets ordinance, and there is also the Complete Streets document. There are two documents that are fairly clear. And if you go into the pathways document, I want to say it's 2013. There's a whole document on planning that's taken place. The other documents, the other Greenway documents are buried in, but they're all on that one page of planning and zoning documents. If you go down that list, you'll see a whole series of documents. I'm
Thank
sorry, guys. I have been dealing with this for 6 years, and I started looking at these documents when there was no collected. Smitha really worked hard. I guess Smitha and John worked hard pulling together all of these into one area where you can actually go through. But it's hundreds of pages to read through all of these. So don't be hard on yourself. It takes time. Jennifer Sheldon volunteered to work on the annual report. So that's all that I have. I'm going to now open it up to anybody's comments or questions.
This is George again. I have a question. I guess this might be to Smitha. The next phase for the complete streets, which we identified would be going from Barnum Avenue to Paradise Green. In that planning, I had addressed a comment of concern at the intersection of Main Street and Huntington Road. When you're coming south on Huntington Road, the merge into Main Street is I'll say a very acute angle. And my recommendation at the time was to take up some of that Paradise Green, if you will, and make that intersection 90 degrees. There's been many, many accidents at the intersection. And it reminds me almost being a duplicate of what we did, of what the town did at the intersection of the River Road Main Street to Old Main Street. Everybody know what I'm talking about?
Is this George speaking?
Yep.
George, on phase 2, unless it's changed, we stopped it basically at Freeman because that is state road, and we already have hit roadblocks with the state. They're more concerned with that being a state road and traffic flow. So we just said, if we ever want to get this built, let's stop it so that, because that discussion is going to be a huge, long discussion. It's already been several years that's been discussed. So the current project, and Smith can correct me if I'm wrong, but the current project stops a block before it gets there. It will stop on the one side where the old gas station is. On the other side, it will stop at the bank. And then you essentially could get off and walk your bike across at that intersection to go down to the retail areas. That's the only thing that we could do because it's a dangerous, dangerous area, the way it's set up right now, particularly if we're going to add bikes into that area.
Oh.
So, if I may respond to Mr. Perham's question and concern, I think the whole point of hiring a consultant to do the preliminary engineering design is to actually look at this more closely. We would have possibly a public workshop to seek feedback and input on your concerns regarding this proposal for Greenway, for the bike route from Barnum Avenue to Paradise Green. So, George, when we have those workshops, you'll have an opportunity to sit down with a consultant and discuss your concern and come up with an alternative solution.
And George, go to the Complete Streets, the 2019 or 2017, the final Complete Streets package, because there was a design that was based on citizen input that you'll see. It begins to try to address what you're talking about, but the initial reaction of the DOT to it was, but you can see what some of the solutions that were proposed, and a lot of those solutions were proposed by local riders and local walkers. We had really good citizen input on that.
That was about 5 years ago, and those were just concepts, and this will be like 30% designs. So there, I think, will be a more technical analysis for the solutions proposed in this stage.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question, Harold.
Yes, sir.
Actually, I have two questions. To stay on topic on this one, just a point of clarification. I'm looking at a map. The phase 2 for complete streets, you said the old gas station. Is that the old gas station that is really attached to the commercial strip at?
Yeah.
Okay, so it does the I guess the northbound side that actually goes to Paradise Green. It doesn't stop way down at Freeman.
No, but what you're looking at is the conceptual drawings, as Smith had just said.
Yeah.
So those design concepts were not based on DOT engineering input, or it was a small input on their part.
Yeah.
So whether that happens or not, we shall see.
Okay. I just feel like that's really important in the sense
I
that.
agree. No, I agree. But we're not going to be the final say in that.
Right. But I mean, as a matter of just as a committee and having our heads together, you know, the whole concept of the complete streets is partially to connect the commercial quarter. So for it to just drop off at Freeman just sounded, you know, underwhelming to me. You know what I mean? If we just push another 100 yards. So I just wanted to clarify that that's an important point of it. And so my question on that Greenway section is, when I got first involved in complete streets, the real promise of it was these extra wide sidewalks, north and southbound, which we were told we have the space for because of the wide state roads. So those extra wide sidewalks got dropped off. You know, they didn't make it into the section by Town Hall. So are we still gunning for that in this section from Barnum to Paradise Green, or is that a lost?
I am gunning, honestly, personally, the reason they got dropped out along Main Street was that putting in 8 to 10 foot concrete walks was very expensive. And my suggestion to them is don't do concrete, because concrete's not the best thing to ride a bike on. Put in macadam with nice brick edges, or even stamped brick edges. So my honest feeling is that it's a battle that we should fight again as a Greenway committee, because I agree with you absolutely. The original concept always was to have complete streets ask as much as possible to have separated off-street pathways wherever you can. And the only reason that we had on-road was for the high-skilled pass-through bike riders.
Correct.
You know, the people who were doing 100-mile rides, they didn't want to mess around with being on an 8-foot path. They wanted to just move, and so there were 2 trails on both sides.
Right.
Now, I think that since we did this design, there has been acceptance nationally and within Connecticut DOT for multi-directional pathways. They're putting one in Milford right along the shore. There's a really beautiful place where you can ride along the shore. They're putting in a multi-directional path there. So it was not something doable when we did these original concept designs, but it is doable now because they have allowed this. So theoretically, we could put in the pathways on the street and then one 10-foot multi-directional pathway on one side of Main Street. That's something that could be considered, but that's exactly what the consultant that Smith is talking about coming in, reviewing what was done and then looking at new suggestions. But Tom, that's where we need to be able to raise our voices and say that again, because we lost something in town.
Yeah.
In terms of safety. I just went on to the state DOT. There have been, I believe, 12 severe accidents on bikes in the last 3 years in Stratford. So that's a lot. That's a pretty big number for our little town. So it's worth something that we should fight for, because safety is always, in my mind, is the most critical thing. If you're going to want people to be comfortable riding these lanes all the time. So I'm telling you, fight for it.
So our phase 2, when we're going out and we're going to hire a consultant to do more detailed drawings. So Smitha, I think you said up to a 30% design stage. And so we can expect that those extra wide sidewalks are going to be part of that design plan. Because if it's not there, it's dead on arrival.
Tom, to be very honest, that whole area is pretty built out, and there's private property rights involved. I don't know how much of leeway we have to accommodate wider sidewalks than what exists right now. But that's a conversation we should have with the consultants and the DOT staff when we are developing the 30% design drawings. So,
Smitha, the design concepts were based on using the 30-foot
right
right-of-way that's the state, and the state had said yes to that. It was only a matter of cost because some people insisted on concrete sidewalks.
Yeah, it's a really important point, because right in the beginning, I'm not sure if I was in the first of the Complete Streets meetings, but the whole point was that Stratford, amongst all the other towns in Fairfield County, had a network of state roads with extra wide right-of-way. That the state actually owned that land, and we can see it everywhere we go. There's extraordinary depth, back to the actual property line. So, it just was such the foundation of what I thought this project was going to be, to put pedestrian pathways off-road, near the trains, near the commercial centers. That's what I felt was really transformative about the Complete Streets project. I mean, don't get me wrong, a bike lane on the road is nice, but it's not the same thing. It's a totally different transformational achievement to get those.
May I make a comment? Also, at the time, the police department did not believe that bikes belonged on sidewalks. Since then, state law has been changed that makes bikes equal on sidewalks. They have to give right of way to walkers and skateboarders and everything else, but bikes can be ridden on sidewalks now, according to state law. And our chief of police has integrated that into Stratford policy, which when we did this 4 years ago, it was not part of Stratford policy. So that's a big change that was not the case several years ago. So that might change people's support of what we're talking about.
Right. Well, I certainly, I know that there's a practical reality of cost and maintenance and existing property rights to Smith. I get all that, but it's just that was Complete Streets to me. That was the reason to really dig in and work on this for an extended period of time, because I know most of the other towns in Fairfield County, they simply don't have that capability. And plugging into the transit-oriented district, the apartments, housing near transportation, and the commercial centers with the extra wide sidewalks was really something that would set Stratford completely apart from most of the other opportunities in Fairfield County. So I just feel like it's a very big deal to keep fighting for that.
Guys, I dug out, this is the name of the document, Town of Stratford Ordinance Number, and you'll find that on the webpage that has all of that's the ordinance that Town Council voted in for Complete Streets. But in addition, there is also Town of Stratford, Connecticut Complete Streets Policy. That's about a 10, 15-page document, which includes the original Complete Streets layouts, including George, Main Street, and Ferry Boulevard. So if you want to go and take a look at that, there's also, I thought there was one page here, maybe it's not, of a pullout from the POCD. Yes,
Harold, can you repeat the names of both of those, please?
it's Town of Stratford, Connecticut, Complete Streets Policy. And then the other one is Town of Stratford Ordinance Number, and there is I don't have the final document, but this was what Town Council voted on when they adopted the Complete Streets Policy. Those are both on the planning zoning page of documents. Thank you, Smith, because she's the one that managed to get all this stuff up there. But that's really useful. This also includes, George, this includes information out of the POCD, but also out of the Greenway report of 2013, I think it is. So you'll see that there are all of these proposed townwide connecting trails on road and off road.
That's great. Thank you.
So, and then Harold, I just have one other question, separate project, the Greenway project, that's going to bid now. If Susmitha, you could clarify, the section goes from Elm Street, from the boat ramp all the way up to West Broad. And so my question is specifically about Academy Hill Park. My understanding is that there's going to be a sidewalk installed on the park side of Elm Street. And I'm just wondering, looking at it more closely recently, I'm just wondering, there's an elevation drop there. And I'm wondering, is there sidewalk planned? Is that going to require any sort of retaining wall in Academy Hill Park in order to create the width for a proper walkway?
It's going to be only a 4 or 5 foot sidewalk. That's not intended for bikes, and they will regrade that area where they have to. There won't be any retaining walls.
Okay, because it does drop off. So I mean, I looked at it. I'm like, how are they going to get 4 or 5 feet here? Because I live across the street. So there's no plan for a retaining wall inside Academy Park?
No, they didn't want to do that. They didn't want to do anything to obstruct the historic flat openness of Academy. Now, unless that's all changed, but I worked on that 6 years ago when I first came onto the Greenway as a volunteer. We were discussing that project, and that was really critical. If we wanted people to walk or be able to ride on a marked trail, that would give them the best sense of the historic district. Yeah. So we didn't want it to intrude in any way visually. Hopefully that still exists.
Is that sidewalk going to keep going down towards Shakespeare? It's
going to stop at
Academy Hill.
It's going to stop at Stratford Avenue.
Is it really? Is it going to go? It's going to go across Academy Hill Terrace or Academy Hill, and all the way down to Stratford Avenue.
It'll start at Broad Street, going straight down to Stratford Avenue.
Just to clarify that, Harold.
Here's the master. Sorry, John.
The sidewalk ends at Academy Hill Road.
Oh, it does.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because then because the whole, I don't want to drag it out, but there was a desire for it to move over to the other side of the street because the crossing at Ferry Boulevard and Stratford Avenue is so very dangerous on the side it's on, and it really, I know it can't be. I understand it can't be. We don't need to open the discussion, but I was hoping to see it move to the other side.
I think because of cost. Look, this has been 4 or 5 years in the making, and we only had so much funds when we designed this. This was
frustrating because that there's so many years involved in getting a change like that, and that intersection is patently dangerous.
That is why we were going to have the lights upgraded. I understand. Yeah. Chris Green rubbed out on that corner. That's where he broke his jaw.
Yeah. No, I mean, for real.
It's not a perfect world.
If you want, the plans were developed, as you said, Harold, to minimize the amount of work. And the committee at the time made a conscious decision to do this first and think and see how it goes, and then they could always do more later. If that's not the committee's thinking, then you can always look at the plans and, see if you like the plans the way they are.
The only thing that
But they are almost completed. So if you wanted to relook at them and redesign them, then, we would have to have the engineer give us a proposal to do changes, and then it would take some certain amount of time to implement that.
where we made the mistake is we took this trail from Perry House down to Shakespeare. And in so doing, we went across Main Street, which was state property. So consequently, state property came in as a party on what could have been just a town greenway. And the whole thing got combined. So it's not great. It's cost us a couple years, but on top of it, COVID cost us 2 years. So between the two, it's cost us a lot. I just want to see us get something that we can put a sign that says Stratford Greenway on, so that we can let everybody know that we're starting. It might not be perfect. It will be less dangerous than what we have now, which is no markings and no stuff. So that's my hope, Tom.
Okay. And then just
So-
understanding no changes or anything, we're going to bid. What's the expected timeline of going to bid, approving a bid, and actually work starting? Is it another 6 months or is it 2 years? It's just.
That's the question that we have to ask the people who respond to the bid.
I think, just going back to Tom Dillon's question, first of all, Tom, this was an effort that was undertaken by John Casey in coordination with the former Greenway committee members, even before I came on board into town hall. I mean, these projects were functioning even before I came.
Yeah.
And when I came into this project, it was at the tail end when they were submitting to DOT for their feedback and comment. And like John said, nothing is set in stone. And if you think there's more changes that have to be made, I encourage you to look at these drawings. The good part is that this is town roads and it's not a state road. So we can make some adjustments to these drawings and discuss it as a committee, discuss in the presence of public, and maybe bring it back to the planning commission for a final recommendation, and then just go forward with the bidding. But again, that is a process, and that will be time consuming. But if the alternative approach is to just take it as it goes for right now, and then eventually build upon it, that is a modified approach for later on. That is also equally good enough. I mean, you as a committee should weigh the pros and cons for both of these options.
Yeah, I would be.
Regarding the bidding for contractors, as soon as we hear back from DOT, I think John's been ready forever. He's just waiting for that green signal from DOT to just proceed with the bidding and hopefully start construction in spring if we can get an answer right away, or like April or May. I'm also referring you to the drawings that are online. This is my last thing, and then I'll let you speak. They are posted under Planning and Zoning webpage under special, current and long-range planning initiatives under the right-hand sidebar. These are under September 26th presentation drawings, and if you look at sheets 9 and 10, that's, I think, what you're talking about for those that are on this call and don't know what you are referring to.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make the point. I don't want to slow anything down, and crossing Stratford Avenue and doing a different section in the future in a different process on the on the other side of Elm Street, I think is worth doing, because that intersection really is that dangerous. But I am not advocating that we slow down the process to include that in this pass. We got to move forward, as much as we can.
If I could also add, there is also a third project that Smitha has just started working on, which runs across Ferry Boulevard. So, and eventually we'll go straight across Stratford Avenue and connect up to the new traffic circle that's going where the Two Roads Brewery is.
Yeah.
And so that's all East Coast Greenway. So
Yeah.
when that project comes into design phase, that intersection at Stratford Avenue and Elm could be redone at that point because that's DOT property.
Right. Okay.
Anybody else? Karen?
Can anyone
Joseph?
hear me?
I don't know who it is, but I hear you.
Oh, I wasn't sure if I was muted or not. I'm just I'm a resident calling in, and I had a question.
Go ask your question.
Yeah. So because I'm sorry I came in late to the phone call, the section of Elm Street between Birdseye and I believe that's Stratford Avenue and Ferry Boulevard there, is that still the plan to just be like a painted bike lane and not cut into the easement?
Yes.
Okay, good.
We would have loved to have done the easements, but it was just too expensive for us to consider.
I'm actually relieved because as a person who lives in that section with one of those large easements, our driveway, already cuts through a sidewalk, which I have to be very careful about coming out. And then I would have the road, and then I'd also have the bike lane. And I could imagine a lot of accidents and a lot of tree removal. So I'm really glad that's not happening.
We'll have the bike lane. It'll just be on road. So you'll still have to
Yeah,
look.
that's fine. I'm totally fine with it being in the road. I just didn't want them to cut into the easement because it sounded like a disaster to me. There's a tree that's literally a giant tree that I've been caring for that would have to be removed, and I'm way against that. So yeah,
Save that.
I'm glad it's just going to be on the road. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Joseph? I have caller 1, 2, 3, and 4. I have George, Harold, John. John, do you want to do any summary? Oh, he's gone. Well, I think that's it. So, Smitha, do you have any final statement?
No, that's it. And I think next month we'll see you at the Planning Commission.
And I'm going to take back our discussion in a abbreviated form to Planning Commission as essentially work points that we're looking at. I hope everybody realizes this is a new Greenway committee. We had just about fallen apart when, at the end of this past year, when Smitha convinced us to reorganize and combine the two committees. So we are essentially rebuilding ourselves. So I think that will be enough to give planning some sense of what's being done. Also, I have one member who I know is going to drop out, and that is Stacy Tavares, which means that one of our alternates would be able to take their spot.
Carol,
yes, ma'am.
excuse me. She is an alternate.
Oh, she is now. Okay.
Your members are Karen Burke, Tom Dillon, Ellen Frank, Christopher Green, Nels Pearson, George Perham, Jennifer Sheldon, James Simon, and you, Harold Watson. Then you have 4 alternates.
So
Joseph Garrett, Karen
no
Rodia, John Staley, and Stacy Tavares.
Okay, so I'm most concerned with Joseph and John Staley because they are active participants. So we're fine then. Good, thank you, Aileen. Is there any other questions, comments? Hearing none, will someone give me a motion?
So moved.
To do what?
To adjourn the meeting.
To adjourn. Anybody second that?
George Perm, I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing no objections, we're closed until the following month.